Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. New Arc Line early access dropped today, and Fulcrum Publishing was kind enough to provide me with an early key to be able to check out the game. I had an absolute blast playing through this experience. It starts earlier than where we were in the demo, so you get to see a lot more of how the journey actually begins, and it is all just reinforced that I cannot wait for this game to fully come out. But I wanted to go ahead and create this video so I could share some of this experience with all of you. First and foremost, what really impresses me about New Arc Line that you don't pick up from the demo is that it comes off, at least in the 10 hours we have with early access, the experience comes off as very dark, very adult. There's a lot of death. There's a lot of what I felt like was very adult writing. And it felt so refreshing compared to most of the RPGs that I've experienced, especially recently. And so really nice to see them going in that direction. You just don't see this very often with games these days. And so I'm hoping that that tone continues throughout your entire adventure, because from what I experienced, they absolutely nailed it. You meet a couple of party members during this adventure, and both of them, once again, come off as very adult. Mick is the first party member you come in contact with. He's a giant, and he kind of comes off, honestly, as someone who's neither good nor evil. He kind of has like a good guy element to him, like a good old boy, but at the same time, it's obvious he's deeply involved with the underworld, not at all above shaking people down or being involved with criminal activities. So it'll be interesting to see if he's someone who, so it'll be interesting to see how he reacts to some of my So it'll be interesting to see how he reacts to some of my actions when we get the full version of this game and I do my Kingpin run, where I'll absolutely be all about shaking people down, getting involved in criminal activity, and things of that nature. Your other party member is much more cold and aloof, and she's highly focused on being professional. I really enjoyed her as well, and I'm looking forward to learning more about her. She's a technologist, but at the same time, there was one sequence where I made it clear that I was against mages, and she was disappointed. She had a negative reaction, so I'm really looking forward to learning more about where she stands and what her perspective is on the war that is the overarching story for New Arc Line. Speaking of which, this game is heavily influenced by Arcanum, and it's basically all about steampunk and diesel engineers going to war against people who are using magic, specifically voodoo, celestial, and occult magic. And honestly, I feel like the way they've set it up makes this world come off as very unique. Usually in these type of situations, I feel like mages are the ones on top running everything, and they're the ones who are looked at as superior. But in New Arc Line, it's absolutely engineers who are dominating all the areas that you're in, and mages are trying desperately to figure out how to carve out an existence in the world as it currently is, at least in the early goings of the games. So everywhere you walk around, you see automatons and signs of what the engineers have been doing. But in some corners, you'll also find magic, such as portals that give you access to cards and let you customize your different spells and things of that nature. I didn't play around with that system all that much because I was mostly focused on guns, but it definitely feels like New Arc Line is going to have a fully developed world. There's voice acting in this early access, which I did not expect at all. We didn't have any voice acting in the demo, and of course this is an indie title, so I kind of steeled myself and was ready for no voice acting to be in the entire experience, but that's not the case. There is a narrator for the game. He has a very interesting voice that I find entertaining to listen to, but it's totally different from what we got in Baldur's Gate 3, so it still feels unique, very nice. And just in general, on the main quest, some of the different characters you interact with will have voices as well, so I really appreciate that. I'm sure it wasn't cheap, So the extra effort hopefully is going to pay off. There are a ton of different races that you interact with in this game just in the first 10 hours, which doesn't even allow you to get to the main city. It's really all about getting to the main city. I interacted with, of course, humans, elves, dwarves, and giants, which you will be able to play as when the full game comes out. But I also spoke with fairies, ogres, weird chicken race. We fought giant rats. We interacted with automatons a few times. Like, there's just a wide variety of different types of creatures you can have conversations with. And it's really, really cool. Feels like some real effort was put into the visual design of these creatures. So oftentimes the portraits look very nice and well detailed all the way around. Again, world building is an area this game seems to have in spades. There are a ton of skill checks just about everywhere, whether you're actually clicking on things or just walking around. And so even though there are a lot of different skills you could potentially build up, frankly, all of them feel very helpful and useful, and they've come up multiple times. There have been plenty of times where I wished, man, I had more points in such and such a skill so that I could do something that unfortunately I wasn't able to do. So really love that, and I'm curious to see how well balanced a team I'll be able to create once we have a full party. There's also a crafting system that lets you put together weapons, grenades, or different gadgets that you might use. Really cool stuff that was fun to play with, and it created a situation where nothing I picked up felt like complete trash. Felt like most of the stuff that I got, I could use in one way or another, and so it was worth looting all of those containers. Now, of course, it isn't all sunshine and rainbows because this is early access, and you can absolutely tell while playing this game. So there were plenty of bugs, including one that stopped me from being able to complete a quest. I needed to throw a body into a furnace, but when I open up my inventory, the body is not there. I've gotten stuck on doors or on benches and things of that nature. I've had to reload my game sometimes, so it's nothing crazy, but this is a game that obviously needs more polish. And from a performance standpoint, I would also say it needs more polish, especially when you're loading up a new game. It takes quite some time for everything to load in properly, for the frame rate to settle down, things of that nature. So this is a game that needs quite a bit of polish, quite a bit of updates. It doesn't look close to release, so maybe we'll get it in 2025. But if it turns out we're not getting this game until 2026, honestly, I would not be shocked. As far as your ability to enjoy early access, if you haven't played the demo at all, I absolutely recommend going ahead and diving in and playing this game. I had a fantastic time with it. Even if you played the demo as I did, I still had a great time with early access. It's all new, different content, and it's going to allow you to delve into the classes a lot more as well and the world. But it does still have the same limitations on races and classes. So currently you can only be a human or an elf as far as your race. And as far as classes, you can only be a diesel engineer or a voodoo shaman. Long term, the game is supposed to allow you to also play as a dwarf or a giant. And I've already said in my first playthrough of the game, I do plan to be a giant. And then as far as classes, they're supposed to add celestial magic, occult magic, Tulsa technology, and steampunk technology. Your party member Mick can actually make use of steampunk technology, but you don't have the ability to choose that same class. And steampunk basically lets you use technology in melee. So when you see the characters with the giant hands who were able to just jump into the fray and start demolishing enemies, that's all steampunk stuff. So I feel like it's going to be much more enjoyable to play once they have more of those options fleshed out. There also needs to probably be better balancing and how these classes operate. I feel like guns are just absolutely the way to go. They shred enemies completely. So even though I used guns when I was playing the demo, I couldn't resist spinning it right back up for early access because it just felt so powerful. And I could tell by what little I played around with and also looking at some footage from other content creators that Magic just pales in comparison. It doesn't have nearly as good an experience. So they're going to need to figure out how to make it, especially considering that there's the whole corruption system with Magic. The devs are going to need to figure out how to make that just as enjoyable as using guns. And to be honest with you, we'll see how it is in the full game, but in the early game, absolutely, I felt like I was really rewarded for being someone who focused on technology. It seemed like there were opportunities everywhere for me to voice my opinion as a technologist and to fix things and figure out how things work and understand things. And I didn't get the impression that it would be the same way if I went with a Magic focused run. It's hard to tell, of course, when you're not directly playing it, but from what I saw, it just seemed like the game is kind of slanted towards technology. Hopefully just in that early going, maybe as you get later on in the game, it becomes a lot more enjoyable to play as a Magic focused user. But regardless, super excited for this game. I think it looks fantastic. I think for any fan of Arcanum, which I haven't been able to play yet, but it's definitely on my list. Any fan of that game, this will absolutely be a must buy. Looks like it's going to scratch that same Magic versus technology itch. And I'm absolutely looking forward to getting the full version of this game in my hands, and we'll continue to do content for it. Speaking of which, if there's any specific content you want to see regarding the game, leave me a comment down below, and I would be happy to do whatever I can to help. Hope you all enjoy this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.